What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Knock On, and today we're diving into the UFC 316 prediction video. Let's be honest, this card's not blowing anyone away, especially for a pay-per-view. The main event? Kind of a head-scratcher. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense on paper, but hey, a fight's a fight, and it could still deliver. The co-main, though? That one's shaping up to be a pretty one-sided beatdown. And honestly, that theme runs deep through this card. Tons of lopsided matchups. Out of the 13 scheduled fights, only 3 of them have close betting lines. The rest? Clear favorites. We're talking 10 fights, including both title bouts, where one fighter is heavily favored. Now, that usually screams weak matchmaking, but in fairness, this card took some damage from last-minute changes. Johnny Walker, Marlon Vera, Shamil Gaziev, Rinat Fakhretdinov, and Elves Brenner all had to pull out. 2 of those guys were originally booked to fight Chaos Williams. Walker was set to go up against Azamat Murzakanov. Vera was matched with Mario Bautista, and Gaziev was supposed to take on Sergey Spivak, so yeah, injuries reshaped this card. That said, we've still got a few promising newcomers stepping up, like Quillen Solkill and Ju Sung Yu. Overall, I'd rate UFC 316 a 4 out of 10 as a PPV event, strictly on paper. But who knows? It could surprise us. This might end up feeling more like a 7 out of 10, or maybe a 2. Depends on how things play out. I'm optimistic, though. I think we're going to see some brutal finishes and dominant performances, partly by design. Quick side note. If you've been trying to rewatch old UFC fights on ESPN+, you're out of luck. They've taken a bunch down amid new broadcast negotiations. Netflix and Amazon are reportedly circling, and Amazon especially seems to be pushing to keep the PPV format. But that's a story for another time. Let's get to the fights. Starting with the prospects of the night, it's got to be both Quillen Solkill and Ju Sung Yu. These two look like the most promising talents on the card. Some might mention Wong Kong, but she's already suffered a UFC loss. Solkill and Yu? They're technical, athletic, and getting better every time we see them, and they're both finishers, which makes them must-watch fighters on this card. The fighter of the night? That's easy. Merab Dvalishvili. There's a real argument to be made that he's already the greatest bantamweight of all time. If he beats Sean O'Malley, that debate gets even stronger. A win here would be massive for his legacy. The fighter with the most at stake is Ariana Lipski, now going by Lipski da Silva. I'm guessing she got married. That name change threw me off. But she's the only one on the card riding a losing streak. 2 in a row, actually. One was to Jasmine Jasudavicius, which isn't terrible. Jasmine's pretty solid. But the other was to Karine Silva, and that's a bit more of a red flag. Lipski got out-grappled in both fights. I don't think she gets cut with another loss here, but she's definitely under the most pressure. The banger of the night, the guaranteed action fight, is Ju Sung Yu versus Jekka Saragi. These guys throw with bad intentions. Yu is a technician, sharp counters, sniper-like accuracy. Saraga? Straight-up chaos with knockout power. 2 completely different striking styles, but both come to finish. That one's going to be fireworks. Sleeper of the night? That's Quillen Solkill versus Yanal Ashmoz. It's a legit test for Solkill, and both guys are well-rounded. Don't sleep on it. The fight of the night, the best matchup on the card, could be Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. 2 top flyweights, both technical, both game to scrap. There aren't many good candidates for fight of the night, if we're being honest. The main event doesn't feel like it. Bautista Evers Mix could be, but Mix is on short notice. Luque versus Holland? Meh. Murzakanov versus Robertson? Definitely not. Silva versus Vaughn seems like the most competitive and high-level matchup. Alright, let's break down the first fight. Markil Medeiros versus Mark Chwinsky. Medeiros is 10-1. Chwinsky is 8-0. Medeiros has 2 UFC wins already, both by decision. One was a split over Austin Hubbard, and the other was a unanimous over Landon Quinones. Before that, he was finishing people. Now, with the jump in competition, we're seeing him go the distance more often. Chwinsky is making his UFC debut. He's fought in LFA and Anthony Pettis' show, but he hasn't faced top-level guys yet. Honestly, this might be a step down in competition for Medeiros compared to Hubbard. Chwinsky is mostly a finisher. 6 of his 8 wins came by stoppage, mostly submissions. But don't let that fool you. His striking is slick too. You watch his fights and think he's a striker, then suddenly he's wrapping up a choke. Medeiros is the better striker. He's tricky, loves switching stances, hand-trapping, and using footwork to create angles. His actual strikes are simple, but the way he sets them up makes them hard to read. He pressures opponents, stands right in front of them, and forces mistakes. Chwinsky is more basic but effective. He's got clean fundamentals and will occasionally throw something flashy, like a capoeira-style kick. His grappling is where he really shines, and he needs to lean on that here. If he tries to stand and trade, Medeiros could pick him apart. Think Medeiros will stuff most of the takedowns, control the pace with pressure, and land the cleaner shots. Eventually, he'll wear Chwinsky down and get the finish. I've got Medeiros by second round TKO. Next up, Quillan Solkill versus Yanal Ashmos at lightweight. Ashmos is solid, he's got power, he's versatile, but Solkill is just on another level. 4 inches taller, 6-inch reach advantage, sharp, striking, slick scrambles, dominant top control, and deadly submissions. The guy's a problem. He throws leg kicks, lands clean angles, and has that one-punch KO power. Look at what he did to Anshul Jubli. Steamrolled him in the first round. Jubli's not a bum either. He's a technical guy, and Solkill made him look like an amateur. Ashmos has knockout power too, but his best work is in close. Problem is, closing that distance on someone like Solkill is going to be tough. Solkill keeps his range, doesn't overextend, and punishes you when you try to rush in. Ashmos could try to wrestle, but Solkill's grappling is too sharp. He's dangerous off his back, dangerous on top, and too slick on the feet. Unless Ashmos lands something crazy early, I don't see him winning this. I'm picking Solkill by third round TKO. Ashmos rushes in, eats counters, and gets finished. With ground and pound. Then we've got Ju Sung Yu versus Jeka Saragi. Yu is a precision striker, patient, calculated, and sharp with his counters. He throws spinning back kicks with accuracy, pot shots like a sniper, and he's got solid takedown defense. He's even trained with Max Holloway and looked good doing it. Saragi? Wild man. He swings with everything, throws leg kicks, and hunts knockouts. He's not technical, but he's a powerhouse. That said, his ground game is a huge liability. All his losses have come on the mat, submissions, or ground and pound. Yu's smart enough to exploit that. I think he'll pick Saragi apart on the feet, and when he sees an opening, he'll take it to the ground and finish it there. I've got Ju Sung Yu by third round TKO via ground and pound. It's going to be a fun one while it lasts. Next, Ariane Lipski de Silva versus Kong Wong. This should be a striking battle unless Lipski decides to test her improved grappling. She looked way better on the ground in the O'Neal fight, but her takedown, defense is still suspect, got taken down 8 times across her last 2 fights. Wong is a slick striker. She's cleaner, more powerful, and more technical than Lipski. Even though she lost to Gabriela Fernandez, I think she'd beat her in a rematch. I don't think Wong needs to wrestle, but she's shown she can. Even got takedowns against Bruna. Brazil, who's got a solid team behind her. Lipski will hang in there though, she's tough. I'm going with Kong Wong by decision. She'll land the cleaner shots, defend enough takedowns, and edge it on the scorecards. Then, we move on to Chaos Williams versus Andreas Gustafsson. Chaos is just too powerful. Andreas rushes in with wild shots, chin high, and that's a recipe for disaster against someone like Chaos. He's not the most technical guy, but you don't need to be when you hit like a truck. Andreas has some wrestling, but he sets it up with blitzes, and that's where he can get cracked. Unless he's super careful, I see Chaos catching him clean. My pick. Chaos Williams by first round knockout. We've got a few intriguing heavyweight storylines heading into UFC 316, starting with Sergey Spivak versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. And for Acosta, this is the moment he's been chasing. 4 straight wins have finally earned him a crack at a ranked opponent, even if it's on short notice. But he's not just getting any ranked heavyweight, he's getting Spivak, who sits at number 7. A win here could put Waldo just a fight or two away from a title shot, especially considering Tom Aspinall has already cleared out much of the top 10. If Acosta beats Spivak and follows it up with a win over someone like Curtis Blades or Sergey Pavlovich, he's right there in the mix. This is your classic grappler versus striker setup. Spivak will absolutely be hunting for the takedown, trying to drag the fight into his world and lock in a submission. Meanwhile, Acosta's goal is to stuff those shots, keep the fight standing, and light him up with hands. It's a dynamic we've seen work against Spivak before. Think back to how Jailton Almeida finished him. Almeida caught Spivak with a big right hand, then swarmed with a rare flurry of boxing combinations. And if Almeida, who's known more for his grappling, can piece him up like that, you better believe Acosta can do it too. His boxing is crisp, he's got a sharp jab, a clean right hand, and knows how to pour on pressure. To Spivak's credit, he's tried to improve his striking, particularly seen in his win over Marcin Tybura. But even with experience against guys like Aspinall, Gain, and Tuivasa, his striking is still behind the curve. He could go with the Marcin Prachnio playbook, leg kicks into takedown entries, and that would give him a real path to victory. Acosta doesn't check leg kicks consistently, and his takedown defense hasn't really been tested since his lone career loss to Marcos Rogerio de Lima. In fact, most of his recent opponents haven't even tried to wrestle him, except for Ryan Spann, who was making his heavyweight debut. Now Spivak's dropped some weight, looks quicker, and his footwork has improved. He's no longer as plodding and flat-footed as he once was. That said, I'm still leaning toward Waldo Cortez Acosta. I think he'll get taken down in the first round, maybe even controlled a bit, but he survives. Then, in the second round, he lands something clean, most likely the right hand, swarms Spivak against the fence, and finishes the job. My pick is Waldo by second round TKO. Next up, Azamat Murzakanov vs Brenson Ribeiro, a short notice opponent swap after Johnny Walker pulled out. And while Ribeiro isn't exactly a clone of Walker, there are some similarities. Both are wild strikers, both are long and lanky, and neither has an iron chin. Ribeiro's been knocked out several times and even dropped in fights he's won. Before he got to the UFC, Zhang Mingyang knocked him out in round 1. Then, inside the UFC, he was KO'd by David Berdakian and Marcio Brown, and even dropped by Joao Paulo Fagundes. The man gets hit, and that's a problem when you're facing someone like Azamat. He's a fast, explosive southpaw with a nasty overhand. Left. If he misses, he pivots off and throws a nasty right hook on the angle. Same move he used to KO his opponent on the Contender Series. That kind of precision, that kind of striking IQ, is what Ribeiro simply doesn't have. Ribeiro's jab is long, his right hand is straight, but he leaves his chin up, drops his hands, and often loses balance mid-combo. Against Dricus du Plessis, we saw him get reversed while trying to blitz forward, literally losing sight of his opponent mid-sequence. Now, Ribeiro might have some advantage on the ground, but I don't see him getting Azamat down, especially on short notice. The more likely scenario is Azamat walking him down, throwing heat early, and finishing the job. My pick, Azamat Murzakanov by first round KO. Respect to Ribeiro for stepping in, but this is a rough matchup. Moving to the flyweight division, Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. Silva's coming off a tough loss to Manel Kape, and Van's on a 3-fight win streak with solid wins over Jumagulov, Cody Durden, and Rei Suyama. On paper, this is a better stylistic matchup for Silva. Both guys are slick strikers, neither really looking to wrestle, but they go about their striking very differently. Manel Kape fights with dynamic footwork, constantly switches stances, throws flying knees, and mixes up his angles. Joshua Van, meanwhile, is much more traditional. Lower stance, tight guard, body movement, sharp boxing fundamentals. Silva likes to explode into right hands and throws front kicks to reset or disrupt rhythm. That could work early. But Van is going to stay right in the pocket and make reads. And that's where Van shines, his in-fight adjustments. Against both Zhumagulov and Durden, he started slow but adapted quickly. That fight IQ, that ability to change mid-round, is where I think Silva might fall behind. Van's going to start ducking under Silva's big right hand, countering with elbows, body shots, and eventually take control of the exchanges. Silva might have a better first round, but Van takes over from there. I'm picking Joshua Van by unanimous decision, and honestly, this might be the sleeper fight of the night. Now, let's talk about the main card opener. Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland. This is an intriguing clash. At one point, there were serious questions about Luque after that Jeff Neal loss. He didn't look like himself, but then he bounced back, dominated RDA, and tapped out Joaquin Buckley in under a minute. And now that we know how legit Buckley is, one of the best welterweights in the world, it makes Luque's win even more impressive. But here's the thing. Kevin Holland can absolutely knock him out. He hits like a truck. He's got sniper-like accuracy, and he's far better suited at 170 than he ever was at middleweight. He just beat Gunnar Nelson, went the distance with Jack Della Maddalena, and looked composed throughout. And honestly, JDM might be a better version of Luque. Both are boxers, both flat-footed, but JDM moves his head, slips shots, and has elite defense. Luque, he's there to be hit. If you stand in front of a marksman like Holland and don't move your head, you're playing with fire. Holland can split the guard with that right hand, drop Luque, and finish him with ground strikes. I'm picking Kevin Holland by second round TKO. I think he stuffs the takedowns, controls distance, and finds that opening clean down the pipe. Now, for one of the most exciting matchups on the card, Mario Bautista versus Patchy Mix. This is Mix's UFC debut, and make no mistake, he's one of the best fighters Bellator ever produced, arguably second only to Usman Nurmagomedov in terms of pure talent. And while his last Bellator fight was boring, Patchy Mix is no boring fighter. He's an electric submission artist with lethal finishing instincts. This is a nightmare matchup for Bautista. He was originally set to face Chito Vera, where he probably would have tried to mix in some clinch control and ground and pound. But against Mix, that's not going to work. You can't hold Patchy Mix against the fence. You can't sit in his guard. His submissions are lightning fast and dangerous from every position. That means Bautista has to strike with him. And while Bautista is solid technically, he's not elite in any one area. Patchy Mix is. Mix is big for the division, fluid on the feet, and just needs one opportunity to take your back and end the fight. I think this is the beginning of a big run for him in the UFC. I'm going Patchy Mix by second round submission. And that wraps up our deep dive on UFC 316's most intriguing matchups. Let me know who you're picking, especially in that Kevin Holland versus Vicente Luque showdown. And don't forget to subscribe to Knock On for all your fight breakdowns, predictions, and post-fight reactions. Mario Bautista is like a jack of all trades when it comes to striking. He's got great footwork, he moves around a lot, and he mixes his attacks in a way that's either very safe or extremely wild. Never really in the middle. You'll see him throw out a couple of quick jabs and pull them back fast to avoid any counters, or he'll suddenly explode with wild haymakers, willingly trading with his opponent. It's a bizarre contrast, but it keeps fighters guessing, and his grappling is solid too. He's got a good rear naked choke, and if you can't wrestle, you're going to the mat. If you can't get off the fence, he'll hold you there. If you can't strike, he'll stay standing and just pick you apart. But here's where it gets interesting. Because going up against someone like Patchy Mix, who's arguably the best submission artist in the entire bantamweight division, that's not going to fly. Patchy Mix is a nightmare matchup for someone like Bautista, because Mario's takedown defense is the weakest part of his game. And Patchy's not just any grappler, he's a specialist. Tall, long, dangerous. He knocked out Raufeon Stotts with a single knee and can strangle you in just about every position. Honestly, he's like a bigger, stronger version of Aljamain Sterling. He's 5'11", with a 71.5-inch reach. That's enormous for bantamweight. He's even wider than Sean O'Malley despite the similar height. I think Patchy Mix is going to take Mario Bautista down and finish him. First round, we'll probably see Mix get top control, land some ground and pound, maybe even threaten a submission late. Then in the second, he's going to go right back to the mat and lock something in for the win. If Patchy finishes Bautista, and I think he will, it's time to put him in the top 5. The bantamweight division just keeps getting more dangerous. Now, moving on to Kelvin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. This is a clash between two power punchers, but the physical size difference here is just ridiculous. I've been saying this for a while. Kelvin Gastelum really needs to move back down to welterweight. At 5'9", with a 71.5-inch reach, he's small for middleweight. Joe Pyfer, on the other hand, looks like he belongs in light heavyweight. He's taller, broader, more muscular. He's going to look like he's 2 weight classes above Kelvin. But the thing about Kelvin is he's fast for a middleweight. Not as fast as he was at 170, obviously, but his speed still gives him an edge over some of the slower guys at 185, and he hits hard. Really hard. The issue, though, is that his striking is super predictable. It's always jab left overhand or right hook left overhand. That's it. Everyone knows what's coming. He did throw a high kick once against Adesanya, but that was an exception, not the rule. Joe Pyfer, on the other hand, is well-rounded. He has strong takedowns, solid double legs, real power in his hands, but he doesn't always set up his shots well. He throws hard, but sometimes his opponents see it coming. If he can improve his setups, more feints, jabs, different looks, he'll start knocking people out left and right. Think of someone like Folk, who's great at hiding his power shots. Pyfer needs to get there. But even with all that, I think Pyfer can overpower and out-wrestle Gastelum. He just needs to avoid standing in front of him too long, because Gastelum is built like a fridge. Durable, powerful, and only needs one shot to change everything. I think Joe Pyfer wins this by decision. I trust his fight IQ, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Kelvin caught him. Next up, the co-main event. Juliana Pena vs. Kayla Harrison. The biggest question in this fight is, can Kayla Harrison steamroll this entire division like everyone expects her to? Because, let's be honest, Juliana Pena should not be champion right now. She didn't beat Raquel Pennington on the scorecards. Raquel clearly won that fight. Kayla Harrison is coming in with 2 UFC fights, but the hype behind her is massive. People already see her as the future champ, and honestly, I agree. She's fought more often, she's more active, and even though she's newer to MMA, she already has more total fights than Pena. Kayla's debut was in 2018, just 7 years ago, and she already has 19 fights. Pena debuted in 2009 and has only fought 16 times. Juliana's only real path to victory is if Kayla gasses out. That's it. Pena cannot go to the ground with Harrison. She'll get tossed on her head. It'll look like Ronda Rousey versus Miesha Tate too. Kayla's throws are violent, and she's got way more strength and power. On the feet, Kayla's actually the better striker too. More technical, more speed, more power. Pena is scrappy. She's tough, but if she blitzes in with those windmill punches like she tends to, Kayla's going to toss her across the cage and probably finish her on the mat. I see a second-round submission for Kayla Harrison. First round, dominant top control, maybe a submission attempt at the end. Second round, more of the same, but this time she gets the finish. Probably by armbar. And what's wild is, even though Pena is the undisputed champion, she's a Play 455 underdog. That might be the biggest underdog a defending champion has ever been in UFC history. It's either her, Matt Serra, in the GSP rematch, or Nico Montano when she was supposed to fight Valentina. That's insane, but I get it. Kayla should be favored, just maybe not that heavily. Now, let's talk about the main event, Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley. This is a weird rematch. It really doesn't make a ton of sense, but it'll still be a good fight. The narrative is simple. Can Sean O'Malley make the right adjustments and get the win back, or will Merab continue to dominate and build his case as the bantamweight GOAT? Sean says he's changed his whole lifestyle since the loss. No more. Smoking, off social media, more time with family, all about focus now. Maybe that loss really lit a fire under him. Maybe he's dialed in and worked hard on his wrestling defense. But unless Merab approaches this fight way differently, I'm not sure how much changes. In their first fight, Merab actually fought more cautiously than usual. He respected O'Malley's range and power. He didn't blitz like he normally does. But if he brings that full pressure game this time, it could either open the door for a Sean O'Malley knockout, or it could completely overwhelm him. If Sean gets taken down early, that power fades. That movement fades. He might win a round. In the middle, maybe round 2 or 3, but I think Merab wins 4 out of 5. He's not super technical, but his cardio, pace, and wrestling pressure are just too much for most guys. Unless Sean can catch him clean with a counter, I see this playing out just like their first fight. So those are my picks, but now let's talk about the betting lines. Merab, 300 vs O'Malley. Pulso 240, I agree with that. Maybe Merab in a parlay. O'Malley by KO at plus 575, not a bad sprinkle. Pena Pulso 500 vs Harrison, 750, way too wide. Harrison should be 450 max. Pena on those odds is interesting, but I wouldn't touch it. Gastelum, Pulso 300 vs Pfeiffer, 400, I don't agree with that. Pfeiffer should be more like 200. That line is way off. Bautista, Pulso 150 versus Mix, 190, sounds right to me. Kevin Holland, 275 versus Michal Oleksiejczuk, Po 210, fair but a little closer in reality. Bruno Silva, Pichu 410 versus Joshua Van 560. That's insane. Van should not be 560, maybe more like 180. Silva is no slouch. Azamat Murzakanov, 550 versus Brenson Ribeiro, pile 400. That one I understand. Should be one-sided. Spivak, 145 vs Waldo. Cortes Acosta, plus 120. Waldo. As the underdog is fair, but I might actually pick him, and the rest of the card, lots of heavy favorites. Some of those lines are just too wide, like Van vs Silva. Others make more sense. So that's it for UFC 316. Let me know your picks in the comments below. Who do you think is going to get the job done this weekend? Should be a fun night with some dominant performances. And I'll catch you all in the next one.